all know what caused the Microsoft outage on July 19th, but what about the true extent of the damage it caused? Suffice to say, the consequences were a lot worse than not being able to log into Xbox Live for a few hours. When the outage first gained widespread media attention, CrowdStrike, the company responsible for the configuration update that caused it, quickly clarified that the chaos was not due to a cyber attack.
Fight the planet!
However, the sheer scale of the disruption opened an opportunity for bad actors to take advantage of the panic that ensued. In an official blog post, CrowdStrike revealed that it has received reports of bad actors trying to trick users, posing as cybersecurity customer support. In some cases, the malicious entities were also trying to pass themselves off as cybersecurity experts. The most dangerous outcome, however, was hackers attempting to sell fake tools that would supposedly help recover systems affected by the issue. In another update, the company also highlighted a whole bunch of packages and websites with the name CrowdStrike to avoid scrutiny and trick users. Some samples of such malicious software tools include CrowdStrike Hotfix.zip, FixCrowdStrikeBSOD.com, CrowdStrikeUpdate.com, and CrowdStrikeFix.com, among others. The Department of Homeland Security also raised the alarm, noting that the agency had, quote, observed threat actors taking advantage of this incident for phishing and other malicious activity. Beyond that, malware researcher Arnold Osipov also spotted a PDF file trying to pass off as an official remedy guide from CrowdStrike. In reality, it was trying to dump malware on the unsuspecting victim's PC. As was made especially clear by major news networks, airline services were the hardest hit, with Delta being the biggest casualty.
How frustrated are you?
This is crazy.
The company was also on the receiving end of heat from U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who lambasted the airline in a tweet that read, "We have received reports of continued disruptions and unacceptable customer service conditions at Delta Airlines, including hundreds of complaints filed with the U.S. Department of Transportation. I have made clear to Delta that we will hold them to all applicable passenger protections." According to data compiled by FlightAware.com, the company canceled hundreds of flights on July 22nd, with the total tally standing well over 4,000 by the safest estimates. Delta has promised a full waiver for all flight bookings made in the July 19th to 23rd slot, as long as the rebookings are made before July 28th. Regardless, there are plenty of passengers who haven't been able to move along with their travel plans as of this video.
We was in Salt Lake City Airport for 10 hours. And now we're going to be in here for over 10 hours before this flight goes out.
Besides Delta, many other airlines were also affected. Notably, the disturbances in services were mostly restricted to companies operating in the West, especially in North America, Europe, and some portions of Australia. According to experts cited by ABC News, China dodged the bullet because businesses there rely on local antivirus tools, while a healthy bunch of unaffected companies in Asia remained unscathed because they simply couldn't afford the tools. One of the scariest aspects of the service disruption was how it affected emergency services. As reported by USA Today, in Alaska, both non-emergency and 911 calls went unanswered at multiple dispatch centers for 7 hours. Alaska obviously wasn't the only state affected in such a way. USA Today's report added that agencies across 7 American states witnessed such systemic disruptions. To deal with this sudden failure of the digital infrastructure, emergency responders had to adapt to the situation in a variety of ways. Some personnel were shifted to stations where the emergency services were intact in order to handle the increased influx of calls. Responders in Indiana's Noble County took notes on pen and paper. Wherever possible, call routing was also put into practice. In Phoenix, Arizona, the local police department asked citizens to stay on the line if their call was put on hold. In other words, despite the tireless efforts of these responders, the needs of countless people were put on the back burner until the situation was resolved. In addition to the obvious commercial and industrial sectors vulnerable to the outage, the CrowdStrike fiasco also slowed down cross-border operations. The failure of the CBP One app, which was developed by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency, is one example of this. Newsweek reports that users were no longer able to see the waiting times for different application stages. The agency also shared in a statement that the mobile application was facing processing delays. Another report from News Nation mentioned that the CrowdStrike outage affected all Customs and Border Patrol laptops and workstations, along with system applications. Because of this, some people waiting to cross the border in the El Paso sector have been hit with delays as lengthy as 3 to 4 hours. Peace Bridge in Buffalo, New York reportedly suffered backup issues as well. The border crossing at the San Ysidro pedestrian line was also affected, while travelers destined for the Tijuana airport and cross-border express were told to arrive earlier than their planned schedule. Per the Associated Press, long delays were reported at the Ambassador Bridge and the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel, which is near the U.S.-Canada border. Even passengers who were part of the Trusted Traveler program developed by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection ran into delays. In Bangkok, the border control systems across 2 airports were also reported, with similar problems raising their head across Singapore and Malaysia. Another expected victim of the CrowdStrike outage was the banking and trade segment, mostly because involved parties readily lap up any enterprise-grade cybersecurity solution to keep them safe from hackers. Among the high-profile victims of the service outage were giants like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Capital One, and Chase, to name only a few. Australia's Commonwealth Bank experienced service disruptions alongside ANC and Westpac. ASB Bank in New Zealand also reported experiencing service issues. Beyond that, the Bank of Israel, Capitec in South Africa, and Barclays in the United Kingdom confirmed operational hiccups as well. So far, no reports have emerged where bad actors took advantage of banking service disruptions to deal any kind of meaningful damage. However, that doesn't mean they weren't trying. The Australian Cybersecurity Centre and the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre both put out warnings about such attempts. The New Zealand Herald also reported that attempts to capitalize on the outage were also discovered by the country's premier cybersecurity agency. The CrowdStrike outage also affected the food supply chain, although the impact was not as well pronounced as the healthcare and travel industries. Among the food and beverage giants affected by the service downtime were McDonald's and Starbucks. In Japan, roughly 30% of McDonald's outlets were shut down, an event which also took a toll on the company's share prices in the country, according to Bloomberg. As for Starbucks, the official mobile app was non-functional for customers, and it seems the credit card point-of-sale system also ran into issues, according to USA Today. Some stores reportedly resorted to accepting only cash for orders, while one store in Vermont opted to give out free drinks.
If giving someone a free cup of coffee on their way to a really hectic workday is what's going to help them, have a little bit of a better day, we're happy to do that.
A Starbucks executive said in a statement to USA Today, Starbucks is among those companies experiencing impacts due to a widespread third-party systems outage, resulting in a temporary outage of our mobile order ahead and pay features. We continue to welcome and serve customers in the vast majority of our stores and drive-thrus and are doing everything we can to bring all systems online as quickly as possible. We apologize for any inconvenience. In addition to the food supply chain, the system outages also took a toll on the goods and transportation segment, halting movement not only in the U.S., but in international ports as well, as NBC reported. Thousands of flights were grounded or delayed at the world's largest air freight hubs in Europe, Asia, and North America. UPS took a hit in the U.S. as well as Europe, while FedEx also went into contingency mode. As far as railroad freight entities go, Union Pacific was the only one to report operational hassles following the outage. The CrowdStrike outage was also a wake-up call for the global healthcare industry. The American Hospital Association wrote in a statement, "These disruptions are resulting in some clinical procedure delays, diversions, or cancellations. Impact is also being felt indirectly as a result of local emergency call centers being down. Impacted hospitals are working hard to implement manual restoration of systems and the CrowdStrike patch." A resident doctor at the University of Louisville told Fortune that every single computer was down at the school's clinic, blocking access to everything from patient records to drug monitoring and digital prescription tools. Global Data reports that over 40,000 computers were offline at Providence Health. Notably, CrowdStrike says it is part of over 1 million healthcare endpoints in the U.S. alone and serves over 100 organizations. According to CBS News, Boston's Mass General Brigham canceled all previously scheduled non-urgent surgeries, procedures, and medical visits, keeping only the emergency units functional, but at a much slower functional pace. North Carolina's Core Health Network nixed surgeries and treatments, and Michigan-based Corewell Health alerted patients about appointment delays. Labs like LabCorp also felt the impact, impeding delivery of testing reports to patients and doctors. Epic Systems, one of the biggest names in the electronic health record platform segment, also reported running into technical difficulties accessing its systems, according to Bloomberg. Procedures that required the use of anesthesia were put on hold at New York's Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and elective procedures were canceled at University Hospital Schleswig-Holstein in Germany. Self-check-in appointments also ran into trouble at the Parisian St. Joseph Hospital, while access to imaging and test data was out of bounds for some experts at London's museum practice. In the wake of service disruptions that sent ripples across the globe, serious questions have been raised about cybersecurity and industry risk factors.
Well, I think the lesson here is whenever we gain a benefit from technology, we pay a price.
One of the issues revolves around the concentration of technical prowess in the hands of a few corporations, which echoes how big tech currently operates across verticals like computing, mobility, consumer electronics, and social media. FTC Chair Lina Khan shared on X, millions of people and businesses pay the price. These incidents reveal how concentration can create fragile systems. Another pertinent issue is that mass service disruptions across crucial segments such as banking, emergency response, healthcare, and travel don't always come courtesy of cybercriminals or foreign adversaries. Sometimes serious upheaval can be generated by a widely adopted tech stack, such as the security tool offered by CrowdStrike. As such, demands for accountability have been made, and the calls are being raised right in the House corridors. If lawmakers have their way, it won't be long before CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz ends up testifying in court.